Hey, I'm Dr. Justine Shuey from Painting with Justine. Today I'm going to teach you how to paint this shield. The first thing you're going to want to do is re-outline your tracing with your black Sharpie. That's going to help you see your lines as you go through and fill in your color. Then you're going to mix up some shade for the background. Now, it doesn't really matter what color you do for the background. I did some white with some blue and sort of made a light blue color, and I just went through and filled in everything. I actually let it dry and I gave it a second coat. And after I did that, I went back in with some little bits of other colors and like that blue there. And I wasn't really feeling it, but I went through anyway and filled it all in to make sure it blended well, but then I sort of gave it some more texture later on so it had more of a shape, and it made the shield in the center stand out a little more because it looked like the background was just surrounding it. So going in and giving again good coverage and doing my best to keep those edges neat and clean for that. So once your background is good, you're going to move on to the colors of the actual shield. So when I did this, I started, again, first waiting until it was all good and dry, and because otherwise I'd put my hand in it because that's how I roll. And then once it's good and dry, starting with one color and doing all the areas of the canvas that need to be that color before you sort of swap to another color there. So I'm going in with the gray, which is actually silver mixed with white, and I'm going to fill out the whole outer edge of that shield there with that gray color, filling it all in. And we're going to re-outline later with our Sharpie and also some white paint to give the shield a little bit more definition. But for now, do your best to stay inside those lines there and go through and again do that the outer edge first, and then go in to do the half of the shield is going to be that gray color. And so just go around your G and fill all that in. You want to make sure that your paint is really, really smooth. If you have ridges or bumps of paint, it is going to make it a little bit more difficult later on when we go into define this a little bit. And you want to make sure not to forget that little area inside that top of the G there. That's a easy area to miss. So I'm going in again and making sure that everything is really smooth, giving things another coat as needed, and again making sure it's all smooth and has good texture so that it will dry evenly. So going back in again with another coat. You don't have to do as many coats as me. I really like to make sure things have good coverage, so I tend to go in a couple of times and make sure it's all really solid there. But again, once you are happy with the one color and it's all nice and smooth and you think it's good to go, clean your brush really well, and then you can use another color. So I just do straight blue for this side here, and my blue tends to be a little bit transparent, so I do go over it and give it a couple of coats. Now I know some more of that is going to be blue, but for now I'm doing my best to keep my sections. That'll just make it easier. Later you'll have a little more definition when you go to re-outline it, so you can see what's supposed to be what color where and all of that. So I'm going in and I'm doing that blue and making sure again it's all smooth, then going in and filling in the whole G, careful around those corners and in those small sections there. And again, it's going to be outlined and we're going to highlight it a little bit, so that will change the image a little bit there as well. So going through and again making sure it's real smooth and giving it a couple coats of paint and doing the whole thing in little sections, and again making sure it's all smooth, letting it dry a little, and then going back in to make sure it's got that good coverage there, cleaning up, and then as you can see going back in that little center area that's going to be blue, but I can still see the shape and the lines underneath, so that when I go in, once it's really, really dry, with that Sharpie to clean everything up and make the edges clean and neat and all of that. So again, you want to make sure it's real dry there. So I am going in now and redoing some of my background. I wasn't feeling it there. It needed some more paint in some sections to have good coverage. And so I'm going in there and making sure it's all nice and neat. And then I'm going to have to let it dry again before I move on. But again, giving it that really good coverage, making sure it's solid and even all that, nice and smooth. As you can see, it's still glistening. That means it's still a little wet, even in the center. And so this is where I'm making it sort of pop by changing the shape a little bit, making it look like it's sort of surrounding the shield to help that shield really pop. Now, once it's good and dry, it's got to be real dry. I've got the a little mini desk fan sitting on it. You can work on those outlines. Now, because I did the background again, I'm definitely gonna stick my hand in the paint. Some of it's dry, some of it's not. As I go around to do some of those outlines, I definitely do stick my hand in the paint. So I am outlining the outer edges with a black, and that is really defining it, and it's going to help it really pop. And then cleaning up some of those other lines that are in there. So going around, see, stick my hand in my paint. Anyway, going in and outlining, cleaning it up. I'm using actually a silver Sharpie there just to clean up my lines, but I'm going to go redo all of that in white paint after anyway, because that's going to blend a little too much. You can't see it over the white, but for me it just makes it a little easier to see those lines when I go back in there to clean it up. So what I'm going to do is finish those outlines in the black. So the inner edge there, I'm doing black, and some of it's covered a little bit, so I'm doing the areas I could see first and then connecting them. And I'm going to mix up some white to go back over and re-outline the G to help it really pop in the middle there. So some of the areas I'll have to go over a couple times to give them good coverage so that it does really pop and is nice and white. But cleaning that up in there and going around is going to make it really stand out. And then once it dries, you'll be able to see that texture. Now, the other thing that you want to do on here after you clean up those edges and re-outline is do some highlights on your painting to really make that G stand out and pop. So once those white outlines are all done and neat and clean, you can even go back in with a little bit of blue if you need to, like I'm doing there, and clean up any sort of edges you feel like you need to. I had a little white on part of my brush. I ended up getting white into the center, so I was blending it out, and then I went in with some more blue so it's nice and blue and pops, but I'll need to let it dry before I go back in again. But making sure that that white is all nice and neat. So I'll mix up some silver there and give this a little bit of highlights so it really stands out and it really pops. And that's pretty much it for this painting. So if you want, you could mix some blue into that silver or clean up those highlight lines if you need to with a little bit of solid blue there, just so it doesn't look like those lines line up. But I hope you enjoyed painting this with me. This was a lot of fun. I can't wait to paint with you again soon. That last little step in there, if you want to highlight with a little bit of white, will make it really pop. But thanks. Have a great day.